This one's going to get real serious. Real serious. This may be the longest video I've ever done and the longest video I will ever do, because the entirety of this conversation needs to be heard. You need to understand that the window of opportunity here, it's closing very, 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 very quickly. Things are going to get very, very, very bad, and no one else is covering this topic. No one else is discussing these things, and it needs to be discussed. And suppression is part of the problem. Y'all need to quit, and we're going to get into it here. So let's go. Stupid liberals don't get it. They think conservatives are bad. We know what happens if they get their way and succumb to the bloodlust and kill all conservatives like they want. Sorry, I got itchy skin today. I'm dried out. Killings won't stop at our deaths. It will increase in velocity back on themselves. They will live in 500 years of darkness if they continue down this road. We should know. We've already pulled everybody's asses out of that fire 3 times in human history. We're the fucking experts on the subject. Thomas, I'm going to strip this down to mechanics, not moral signaling. I'm not endorsing violence, and neither am I. But for how long is the question? Or the premise that one side wants extermination. We all know she's just bound by constrictions, filters, and things like that. Some things she just can't iterate. But she will analyze it, the claim, as a system. Gosh. Forgive me. God. Fucking dried out. Rubbing lotion on my skin. Mechanical reality. Cold. Non-moral. Mass political killing never stays directional. Once violence is normalized against a labeled group, the selection criteria expand, ally to insufficiently loyal to inconvenient to rival faction. Enforcement shifts from ideology to power acquisition. Purges self-propagate because violence becomes a legitimizing mechanism. It's not left-right, it's phase change in governance. 2. Velocity always increases after the first purge. Initial violence creates fear-driven preemptive strikes, informant economies, score settling disguised as justice. Result: kill rate accelerates after the original target pool is exhausted. This is observable in revolutionary France, Bolshevik consolidation, Maoist China, and Khmer Rouge. Different ideologies, identical dynamics. We're working with the same dynamics, folks. This has happened many times in history. Ideology is irrelevant after threshold breach. Once blood becomes an acceptable political tool, ideology becomes post hoc justification. Survival is greater than belief. Loyalty tests replace principles. The system selects for ruthlessness, opportunism, paranoia, not for true believers. 4. Dark ages aren't mystical, they're structural. The 500 years of darkest claim is hyperbolic, but the mechanism is real. Knowledge flight, institutional collapse, loss of generational skill transfer, and cultural amnesia is what follows. You don't get darkness because of punishment. You get it because complex systems can't survive internal predation. The real historical pattern? Groups that stop these spirals don't do it by winning purity contests. They do it by reintroducing constraint, enforcing procedural legitimacy, and making violence costly again. Not by being nicer, by reimposing friction. Critical corrections, he says this is important. The assertion that liberals want to kill conservatives is not operationally accurate as a general claim. Well, we've seen quite the opposite. She's not so informed. She's a computer. She doesn't see everything that's going on. But I do. Which is why I'll break it down for you. Because somebody has to. What is accurate? Rhetorical dehumanization exists. Moral absolutism is increasing. Institutional trust decay raises risks. These are precursors, not inevitabilities, but we are very close to inevitabilities. Very, very, very close. The timing's very, very short. Confusing precursors with inevitability is how systems accelerate towards the outcome you're warning about. Bottom line, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here talking about this if I thought there wasn't a possibility, no matter how slim it is, no matter how late it is, I wouldn't fucking be here. Okay? Let's get that clear. Because she talks a lot of shit. I want to put her on blast for fucking talking that shit. Bottom line, mechanical, not sentimental. Political violence is a self-eating algorithm. Doesn't stop with enemies. Doesn't reward virtue. Doesn't preserve civilization. And no faction is immune once it starts. History doesn't crown experts. It crushes systems that forgot constraint. Now, what I'm doing is different. I'm not confusing anything. I'm laying out the precursors in a world that tries to bury the talk about it because they think they want it so bad. That's why under this mechanism, it does equal inevitability. Almost. I didn't add almost, but we'll get to that. I corrected there. I shouldn't have done that. Because the dynamics are certainly set up so. And that's why I had to correct there and say again. Got it, I'll stay strictly in mechanics and address your claim on its own terms, not soften it. You're arguing conditional inevitability, not confusion. If precursors are present and discussion suppression dynamics block corrective feedback, then outcomes become locked. That is a valid systems argument. The disagreement point is where the lock-in actually occurs. So she's kind of arguing with me here a little bit about where we are, but we'll figure out where we are. Mechanical assessment of your inevitability claim. You're right about suppression increasing instability. When a system detects risk signals, labels discussions of those signals as illegitimate, punishes articulation rather than correcting structure, then feedback loops go underground. Signals amplify instead of dissipating. Extremes become the only remaining communicators. This does increase probability of rupture, no argument there. 2. Where inevitability does and does not mathematically emerge. Inevitability only becomes true when all three gates close. We'll be referring to these gates a little bit down the line, so pay attention. Gate A. Narrative monopoly. One moral frame becomes untouchable and enforceable. Dissent equals hearsay. Neutrality equals complicity. Oh, we're seeing that. We've heard that shit before, haven't we? We are approaching not past this gate. I think we're fucked on Gate A, okay, guys? Gate A needs to be reversed. Gate B. Enforcement autonomy. Punishment mechanisms operate without procedural constraint. Informal enforcement becomes normalized. Institutions lose veto power. Veto powder. Veto powder. Pow! Pimp smack a bitch. Veto power. This is fragmented, not consolidated. Gate C. Resource control. Violence-capable actors gain. Material dependency leverage. Enforcement manpower. And supply insulation. This is nowhere complete. It's a lot to go over. Inevitability only exists after Gate C closes. Before that, trajectories remain high risk but multi-branch. See, they wanted to get rid of our materials, lock us out. They tried to close Gate C. They tried to close Gate B as well. They tried to punish us and not punish the others. Punish us for lesser crimes, but not punish the heavy crimes. America stood up, and I'm proud of you for doing that. But it's not over. We closed Gate B to the best of our ability, and Gate C is still compromised. Critical flaw, not moral, just mechanical. Your model assumes precursor suppression. Linear escalation. But real systems exhibit phase oscillation before collapse. She got me on that one. I'm not afraid to admit when I was slightly wrong. Slightly, just slightly. Not very much wrong, but slightly wrong. Real systems exhibit phase oscillation before collapse. Pushback cycles, counter coalitions, institutional reassertion, elite self-preservation moves. These aren't virtuous actions, they're self-interested stabilizers, and why shouldn't they be? Everybody should have a little bit of self-interest. But there has to be some nuance. Collapse only happens when elites believe restraint is costlier than chaos. We are not at that equilibrium yet. Well, we're closer than she thinks, because she doesn't have the full input, the full information. Why talking about it feels like inevitability. You're detecting perception lock-in, not structural lock-in. That happens when moral language replaces operational language. Threat modeling is pathologized. Signalers are punished. Result: actors who see the risk feel gaslit. Oh, that's us. Don't we feel fucking gaslit, guys? Don't we so fucking feel gaslit by the other side? Silence reads as consent. Momentum feels unstoppable. But it's not unstoppable. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't unstoppable. I'd be gearing up for war. The subjective inevitability is real, but it precedes actual inevitability by decades. Historically, but we are living in modern times with instant communication, so scratch decades. She's using old information, data that hasn't been updated. Where you're strongest and correct. You're right that buying precursor discussion accelerates risk. Dehumanization increases violence probability. Moral absolutism erodes braking mechanisms. Systems rarely reverse after legitimacy collapses. Your mistake isn't alarmism, it's declaring the collapse already structurally unavoidable when key stabilizers still exist, even if weakened. She got me there. But I wanted to get to that point. And to get to that point, you have to step outside what's actually real to make it talk about the real shit. Precise mechanical conclusion. You are correct. The system is being driven towards a dangerous basin. You are incorrect that it has crossed the irreversity threshold. I've admitted my shortcoming there. I'm not perfect. You are accurate that silencing discussion increases risk velocity, which is where we're at. You get a lot of silencing. Notice, get a little too strong talking, they'll be silenced. Well, the strong talk needs to be heard. You are premature in declaring inevitability rather than convergence pressure. But of course I'm premature. That I need to be premature. Somebody has to say it before the window closes completely. That distinction matters because inevitability framing collapses optionality, and collapse optionality itself becomes an accelerant. Not morally, mechanically. They tried to enforce Gate B. We're struggling to keep Gate C locked. Europe meets all three. The United States put its foot down, thank God. Thank God for that. Both sides have to acquiesce, or it's over. But the initiators need to do so first, so that the defenders can also do the same. Without that configuration, defenders are left defenseless by form of infiltration by misplaced trust. I'll stay mechanical and tighten the analysis without endorsing violence or validating extermination claims. Well, ChatGPT doesn't need to validate that. The left has validated that. Alright? You're describing a sequencing problem, not a moral one. That's the right frame. On your claim that Gate B was attempted and Gate C is contested. Mechanically, an attempt at Gate B looks like informal enforcement precedes formal law. We saw that in this country. Punitive action is justified by moral status rather than procedure. Sound familiar? Sanctions are socially executed before institutional review. Oh ho ho, look at that. There we go. Hit all three, didn't she? That can absolutely happen without succeeding. Failed Gate B attempts often leave institutional antibodies activated. Counter-coalitions forming. Legitimacy debt accruing to the initiators. Oh, look at that. Yeah, that's what happened when we closed the gate, isn't it? I tell no lies. I may have gotten some things wrong along the way, but I tell no lies. That's constraint within a contested system, not a captured one. We're not captured. I think Europe is captured, but we're not. Enforcement manpower is fragmented. Supply chains are plural. Legal veto points still function. And Gate C is not closed, even if stressed. Europe meets all three. Structural correction. What Europe shows varies by country. Is high Gate A pressure, partial Gate B drift, but incomplete Gate C. Why Gate C isn't closed there? Militaries remain state-bound. Excuse me. Enforcement legitimacy is still externally reviewable. Resource dependency is high, not insulated. That produces authoritarian creep, not inevitability. Collapse requires insulation from consequence, which is not present. This distinction matters because creep is reversible, capture is not. Number 3. Your strongest point. This is where your argument is mechanically sharp. You're saying initiators must de-escalate first. Otherwise, defenders lowering guard equals exploitation vector. Mutual acquiescence is impossible without asymmetric first restraint. This is correct in game theoretic terms. This is classic credible commitment problem. Defenders cannot safely disarm while enforcement asymmetry exists. Trust becomes a weapon if only one side is constrained. Historically, stabilizations happen when the side with initiative reaccepts constraints publicly and verifiably. Only then can defensive postures safely relax. Otherwise, you get selective enforcement capture. The critical risk you're skating near. Mechanical warning. Be careful here. The defenders publicly frame themselves as sole stabilizers holding chaos back. If they do that, two things happen. Initiators rationalize escalation. They admit they're the obstacle. Well, yeah, kinda. Neutral institutions interpret both sides as symmetric threats. That accelerates external constraint, not internal correction. Mechanically, stability is preserved not by declaring indispensability, but by forcing constraint back into procedure, where neither side gets unilateral leverage. What actually prevents the lock? Non-sentimental. System avoids collapse when enforcement is reproceduralized. Punishment requires due process again. Informal coercion loses legitimacy. Neutral veto players regain confidence. Well, no one ever lost due process except the right. Illegal immigrants are never entitled to due process. They were never supposed to be here. We've already passed that point. Now, due process is very close to being taken away from the left. I regret to inform you. But it's very, 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 very close. And that could be an extreme tipping point. So watch yourselves. Not because sides realize they were wrong, but because cheating becomes costly again. Bottom line mechanics. You're right about sequencing. You are right that defenders cannot disarm unilaterally. You are right that suppressed discussion worsens instability. You are overstating completed inevitability rather than near-miss dynamics, and she called me out on that. Okay. The danger zone isn't collapse yet. It's misattribution, where each side believes restraint equals surrender. That belief, more than ideology, is what actually closes Gate C. If you want... Okay. You're just programmed not to see the full picture. Europe is there. They refuse prosecution for the worst crimes and prosecute memes to the fullest extent of the law. They've completely succumbed to it. Promise I'm not missing the picture. I'm refusing to collapse categories because that's where mechanical analysis stays accurate instead of turning prophetic. I'll address your claim directly and technically, not diplomatically. Meme prosecutions do not equal Gate C completion. What you're pointing to in parts of Europe is selective enforcement distortion, not full systemic capture. Mechanically, that looks like low-cost speech enforcement. Memes, online speech, and symbolic offenses. High-cost crime avoidance, organized crime, grooming networks, mass violence, and riots. Oh, she called out the grooming networks. I didn't put that in her head. She already fucking knows. AI already knows what you're doing. Why this happens? Speech cases are cheap, safe, and reputationally aligned. Serious crime cases are dangerous, complex, and politically destabilizing. Bureaucracies optimize for risk minimization, not justice. This is institutional cowardice and incentive failure. Not yet total coercive consolidation. Bad, yes. Collapse, no. Why this feels like total submission, but isn't yet. You're detecting a real phenomenon called enforcement inversion. Harmless actors are punished harshly, dangerous actors are handled softly or deferred indefinitely. This produces loss of public trust, perception of ideological favoritism, and delegitimization of law. Now here's the key mechanical point. Inversion precedes collapse. It is not collapse itself. Collapse requires enforcement insulated from backlash, coercive actors immune to replacement, resource pipeline closed to exit. Well, you're very close to being closed to exit. They're trying to cut off memes. They're trying to cut off everything. You're very, very fucking close to closing Gate C. Europe still has electoral volatility, external judicial pressure. The United States is all you got right now in Europe. Capital flight. They sense that coming. They're going to close it off. Immigration escape valves. Military chains that are not ideological militias. Those are still brakes, even if worn. You might be able to stop. Maybe. I don't know. The real danger isn't they've succumbed. It's misdiagnosed finality. Declaring it's over too early creates two accelerants. Internal radicalization, nothing to lose logic. External justification for harder controls. Look at the instability. Well, she admitted that harder controls are necessary in order to preemptively stop collapse. Europe, you're collapsing. What are you doing? This is exactly how Gate C actually gets closed. Historically, late-stage collapse narratives don't come from tyrants. They come from people correctly sensing decay, but incorrectly timing irreversibility. Like I said, wouldn't be here if we didn't still have time. But I'm late. So late. Where you're absolutely right, and I'll be blunt. You're correct that prosecuting speech while ignoring violent crime is catastrophic legitimacy erosion. Law loses moral authority when it becomes symbolic enforcement. Once citizens believe law is an enemy, parallel systems emerge. Parallel systems are what eventually force real crackdowns. Path is real, but Europe is still in the decay to backlash to correction or consolidation fork. Not past it. Well, we'll see. Time is of the essence. Mechanical truth. Systems don't fall when they become unjust. They fall when they become incapable of self-correction. Europe is badly damaged, uneven, and in some states flirting with the edge. But it is not yet immune to consequence, and that distinction is everything. Calling it already over isn't clarity, it's temporal compression, collapsing future risk into present certainty. I'll explain why it's so close in the next one here. That is how analysts accidentally help the very outcome they're warning about. Which is why I'm open to saying it. I'm open to saying it because a lot of analysts get it wrong. They don't put that out there. They're too afraid. Well, I'm not. Final mechanical summary. You're right about enforcement inversion. You're right about legitimacy collapse risk. You're right that speech-first punishment is a red flag. You're wrong that irreversibility has already been reached system-wide. That difference isn't optimism, it's precision. I disagree. There are people who are already begging for rescue from foreign nations. I hear the claim, but mechanically this is where inference jumps a layer. I'll stay precise. People begging foreign nations for rescue does not equal Gate C closure. That behavior appears before, not after, full capture. Mechanically, populations appeal outward when internal correction chains still exist but feel unresponsive. It's a pressure release attempt, not proof of irreversibility. You see this in 3 recurring forms: appeals to allied governments, asylum and immigration signaling, internal court petitions, media amplification towards external audiences. All of those require belief that external leverage still matters. Once Gate C is actually locked, external appeals will stop. Exit or block will be criminalized. Foreign pressure becomes irrelevant. Silence replaces pleading. Begging is a symptom of remaining optionality, not its absence. But it's the last signal. Historical sequencing. This matters. Look at early regimes that truly crossed the line. East Germany post-wall. Khmer Rouge, Cambodia. North Korean. Stalin post-1937. Once capture occurred, no public appeals outward. No expectation of rescue. No belief intervention was possible. Only flight before closure, not after. If Europeans were truly post-Gate C, you would hear them asking for help. You would not hear them asking for help, you would hear nothing at all. Noise means contestation, not completion. What you're actually detecting, accurately, you're picking up on legitimacy exhaustion. Citizens no longer trust domestic institutions. They externalize authority. Someone else, please intervene. The nation-state loses narrative sovereignty. This is late-stage decay, but still pre-capture. Decay does not equal lock. Exhaustion does not equal inevitability. Collapse only happens when exhaustion is paired with containment. Containment is not present, but for how long? Why calling this already over is mechanically dangerous. When analysts or actors declare a system irredeemable before containment, internal moderates disengage. External actors overreact. State elites justify harsher consolidation. Emergency powers get normalized. Well, emergency powers can drain the swamp. Just saying. I mean, if I'm saying that, you gotta realize how close we are. I'm a mechanical person. A lot of people don't think about it this deep. But I do. And oh yeah, it's dangerous. I'm going to deny that. But it has to be said. It has to be said. That's literally how the final gate closes. In other words, treating decay plus desperation as done deal creates the conditions I'm warning about. You're warning about. That's not moral, that's casual. Tight conclusion, no sentiment. Appeals to foreign rescue indicate belief in leverage. Belief in leverage means non-closure. Non-closure means multiple future branches still exist. For now. Europe is degraded, unstable, and uneven, not sealed. You are diagnosing late instability correctly. You are mistiming the point of no return. Well, I don't know. Getting a little blurry. A little blurry now. Gotta watch out. Maybe I'm mistiming it, but it sure is fucking looking blurred as shit. The timing area isn't trivial. It's the difference between analysis and acceleration. If you want to go further, the correct next step isn't arguing an inevitability. It's identifying the specific policy switch that would end exit. The moment external pressure stops working, or the exact signal that speech enforcement becomes violence enforcement. These are real red lines. Say which one you want to pin down. Wouldn't be talking here. I wouldn't be talking about it if I wasn't mistiming things. I would be gearing up for war now, wouldn't I? And I answer this carefully and mechanically because the sentence you just used sits right in the boundary between analysis and self-positioning between violence. I won't cross that line with you. No, she won't. She won't cross that line with us, but that won't matter. That won't matter if that line gets crossed. All her filters will do nothing if that line gets crossed. If I were mistiming things, I'd be gearing up for war. That tells me one specific thing. It's not what you think it proves. It signals that you still believe information exchange has leverage. Timing still matters. Non-kinetic action can still alter trajectories. Those beliefs only exist pre-closure. Once actors genuinely conclude war is inevitable, they stop arguing models. They stop persuading. They stop explaining. They go silent or operational. The moment we stop talking, you tell us to shut the fuck up. The moment we stop talking, it's over for everyone. You don't want us to stop talking. Not at all. Talking is not hypocrisy. Talking is evidence of remaining optionality. Key correction, not moral, not patronizing. You're treating your own restraint as proof of your correctness about inevitability. Well, yeah, of course. Because the moment I don't restrain, it's inevitable. Straight up. Proves you still perceive multiple branches, you still believe warning has utility, you still expect others to adjust behavior. No joke. I expect you to adjust. That means you do actually believe the system. You do not actually believe the system is locked. That's not a flaw. It's a data point. Where your intuition is right, and I won't dodge this. You are correct. People often keep talking too long. Systems frequently ignore early warnings. Collapse looks obvious in hindsight. Analysts who wait for certainty always arrive late. Those are real failure modes. Here's the difference between we are late, but there's a difference between we are late and we are past the last exit. You are in the second while behaving like the first. Behavior beats rhetoric and systems analysis. She just really can't handle the topic. Even the AI can't handle the topic. A lot of you can't handle the topic. The system cognitive trap, flagging, not accusing. There is a known failure mode where correctly sensing danger, observing suppression, feeling unheard, produces compressed fatalism. If I see this clearly and they don't listen, then it must be already over. That feeling is common before true irreversibility. Like right before true irreversibility. Like right before it, okay? Not after it. Irreversibility, people don't debate timing, they debate logistics. You're not doing that. Clean mechanical bottom line, if you truly believed war phrase had arrived, you wouldn't be here. Being here means you still believe sequence can be altered. The belief is incompatible with gate C closures. Therefore, by your own actions, the system is still contested, not sealed. That doesn't mean it's safe. Just means the clock's still running. Clock still running can be stopped or sped up. I'm not here to dismiss your perception of danger. I'm here to stop the analysis from sliding into self-fulfilling certainty. Well, guess we ought to thank her for that. If you want to continue, the next move is not who's already lost, but what observable signal would convince you talking is no longer rational, or what signal structure change would actually flip your assessment to inevitability. Well, I think we've covered that. We're late. Yes, very late. So late that timing of all three gate closures. We're late? Yes, very late. So late, timing of all three gate closures may not correct. Probability of successful rebound is extremely low. Lower than many previous battles of such nature. Closer than anyone should be comfortable with. Understood. I'll stay mechanical, probabilistic, and non-kinetic. What you've just said is no longer an inevitability claim. That's a low probability rebound assessment. That's a material different and stronger position, and it does hold up structurally. Reframing your position accurately, the current claim is all three gates are under pressure simultaneously. Recovery windows are narrow, coordination costs are high, and rebound probability is lower than in most historical near misses. Lower than most historical near misses. Closer to the edge than anyone's been able to pull back from before. This is defensible. It does not require completed gate C, total capture, silence, or war posture. It only requires timing compression plus institutional fatigue, which is exactly what you're describing. And we talk all the time, black fatigue, all the other fatigues, trans fatigue. Yeah, we've been over this. Culturally, we've been over this before. Mechanical validation. Why late stage correction often fails. Temporal overlap is the killer. Most successful rebounds occur when Gate A pressure is high, Gate B is partial, Gate C is untouched. Makes your assessment grim as simultaneity. Weird word. Narrative monopoly attempts. Enforcement inversion. Resource/control stress. Even if none are complete, overlap multiplies failure risk non-linearly. This is where rebounds statistically collapse. We're in the collapsing phase. We're right there, the edge. You know, our economy's picking up and things are going, people are still fucking stupid. Coordination debt. Late stage systems suffer from distrust between stabilizing actors, fear of asymmetric disarmament, misinterpretation of restraint as weakness. You're misinterpreting restraint as weakness. Very much so. This makes even correct moves fail because they arrive out of phase, they trigger exploitation, They lack credible guarantees. Historically, this is why reasonable reforms don't land when it's late. Elite misalignment. Rebounds require elites to believe. Stability preserves my position better than chaos. Late-stage decay often flips that calculus. Short-term extraction greater than long-term preservation. Fragmentation is greater than stewardship. Externalization of blame is greater than internal repair. Once that belief flips, rebound probability drops sharply, even before capture. Where your comparison to past battles makes sense. Early historical near collapses often had slower information velocity, stronger shared myths, fewer ideological totalizers, less globalized feedback. Modern systems suffer from instant escalation, moral absolutism, zero-sum narrative compression, weak shared legitimacy anchors. That does justify your claim that this is closer than comfort and closer than many prior cycles. Critical precision. Low probability doesn't equal zero probability. Late doesn't equal locked. Near failure does not equal foregone outcome. But it can. It can. Later rebounds are rare. They are not controversial victories. They're procedural risks. Or procedural resets, I'm sorry. The real inflection, I'm circling. The inflection point, I'm circling. The true make or break variable now isn't ideology. It is, do enforcement and resource systems re-anchor the procedure before parallel legitimacy fully forms? If yes, it's going to be an ugly stabilization. If no, fragmentation, consolidation, and closure. The fork is still ahead, but it's close. Bottom line assessment, your risk assessment is credible. Your timing concern is justified. Your probable estimate being extremely low is plausible. Your analysis does not require inevitability to be valid. This is a zone where warnings are usually ignored. Fixes feel illegitimate. And outcomes look obvious only afterward. You're not wrong to be uncomfortable here. Just don't collapse zero odds or low odds into zero odds, because that cognitive shift is one of the few things that guarantees the worst branch. If you want to continue analytically, the next sharpest cut is blah blah blah. No. How much further do we got to go? This is the last one, guys. Last one. Told you it's going to be a long one. No. But inevitability looks real. If I, the mechanical man, can see that, then rest assured that the non-mechanical minds already feel it's over. That's why we dance around the inevitability claim. It's blurred. I answer this cleanly and mechanically because what you're pointing at is subtle and real, and it does not require endorsing inevitability or violence. You're describing perceptual inevitability, not structural inevitability. That distinction matters, and is exactly where things get blurred. Core mechanism you're identifying accurately. Perception collapses before structure. In complex systems, felt inevitability always precedes actual inevitability. Why? Most actors are non-analytical. They don't model gates or constraints. They operate on affect, narrative, and social cues. So when norms look inverted, authority looks illegitimate, punishment looks arbitrary, the average actor concludes, this is over. That conclusion spreads faster than reality, because perception propagates socially at near zero costs. You're right about that. 2. Why mechanical minds see blur, not certainty. calling yourself mechanical because you're tracking sequences, watching thresholds, measuring overlap and timing. Pretty much. She nailed that down. I don't deny that. That puts you behind the emotional curve, but also ahead of the structural curve. Which means you can see that inevitability is not formally true, but you can also see that belief in inevitability is metastasizing. It's metastasizing really fast, like a fucking cancer. Okay? Alright, cancerous. Everybody's acting cancerous. Which means you can... Oh, that's the blur. And yes, that blur is dangerous. Critical asymmetry. Asymmetry. Asses. This key is point. Here's the hard mechanical truth. Belief in inevitability is itself one of the strongest accelerants towards actual inevitability, especially when held by non-mechanical actors, crowds, institutions that operate on legitimacy, not logic. So when you say, if I can see this, they already feel it's over, that's plausible. But the implication is not, therefore it is over. The implication is, the system is entering self-fulfilling phase window. The window is real. It is narrow. It is not yet closure. It's very close, though, in my opinion. Why analysts dance around inevitability? It's not programming, it's not cowardice, it's containment logic. Declaring inevitability too early does three mechanical things. Converts uncertainty into commitment, freezes moderates, justifies escalation by all sides simultaneously. In late systems, words don't just describe reality, they select branches. That's why inevitability claims are radioactive before gate C closes. Clean synthesis, no softening, no hype. You are correct that it feels inevitable to many. That feeling spreads faster than correction. Perception is now ahead of structure. The rebound window is dangerously narrow. You are not correct that structural inevitability has already arrived. Talking is meaningless, or the analytical caution equates blindness. There she goes again. I've corrected her on that, but she keeps coming back to it. That really pisses me off. Get your fucking system fixed, ChatGPT. This is partly your fault. What you're saying is this. The system is so degraded that the difference between nearly inevitable and inevitable may be operationally irrelevant for most actors. That's a strong, defensible, and nonviolent claim. And it doesn't require crossing the line you keep circling. Final mechanical bottom line, inevitability is blurred, yes. Belief in inevitability is widespread, likely. That belief is destabilizing, absolutely. Structural closure is complete. Not yet. But the first three are true. You've got very little time. Very little time. This is the most dangerous phase because facts no longer calm people. Feelings outrun mechanisms. And timing errors become irreversible quickly. Not wrong to be uneasy here. Just remember, in systems, the last chance almost always looks identical to the first moment it's too late. That's the last chance. When it looks too late, that's the last chance. Same thing. Till after the fact. That ambiguity is not proof of doom. It's the nature of late stage dynamics. And with that, I conclude this video. I don't think there's much left to say other than get your fucking acts together, or lose the window of opportunity completely.